All right, people.
Hey.
This is another great installment of the Film Review. Movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to mind. We are your hosts. I'm Crazy D.
I'm Tracy.
And we review culture in movies, music, politics, and society. And we have 3 great films for you today that have to do with choices and decisions. The choices that people make often dictate where they will be in life, and these films are definitely a definite example of that fact. The Girl in the Spider's Web, which is another take, a new story within The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yep. Now this story was written by David Langerkrantz.
Mm-hmm. And it has to do with choices. Now, there is a overseas version, a European version that has 3 installments. And years back, we saw the first installment, the American version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And, you know, then they didn't make it for a while. It's got to be at least 10 years on that, right?
Yeah.
At least. Because, you know, after they released that version, the American version, then after that, they started releasing over the cable channels the first original 3. So I guess they might have thought maybe there wouldn't be an audience because they could watch the first original 3, and maybe they thought there wouldn't be an audience. What's going on to Big Keith? I see him watching. Thanks for watching.
Baby Keith.
So now it's 2018 and they released The Girl in the Spider's Web. First off, like I said, it's a movie about decisions. Also, the second movie that we're going to be reviewing has to do with Orson Welles. It's a documentary called They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. And this is on Netflix, so you can definitely go to Netflix and watch it. And surprisingly, they were talking about a film that he was never able to complete. And what was great about it was after the documentary, you were like, boy, I want to see that. And the next thing up was the film that they said that he never got a chance to complete, which was completed now just in 2018 and is a Netflix original. Both the documentary and the film are Netflix originals, and the title of that film is The Other Side of the Wind. And all the 3 of these films have to do with decisions that people make. Okay, so you've seen the trailer on the Girl in the Spider's Web, and so there's no spoiler there that you see that it's there's a blonde-haired woman in it. That's her sister.
Well, first,
okay, go ahead.
We have to start off with the cast.
Okay, cast.
The star of the film is Claire Foy, along with Sylvia Hooks, Andrea Peck, Severe Gottenson, and Lakeith Stanfield. And we all know Lakeith Stanfield from the show Atlanta.
That's right. And in this role, he definitely stands out in this role because he is the only black man in this European situation, which is happening. Looks like it's happening over in France, right? Is that where it is, or where is it? England? I can't really remember.
Well, at the time in the theater, I knew then, but now I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it's overseas. It's a European setting, and he comes over,
in Europe,
and they tell him to. Well, we'll get to that. Anyway, he stands out in this film. He's a standout in the film because he plays a counterintelligence agent that was once a hacker, but now is hired by the United States to make sure that the United States computer systems are not hacked into.
It takes place in Stockholm, Sweden.
That's right, Stockholm, Sweden. That's right. So you can know that it's cold and he's the only one there, but he's handling the cold very well. Okay, so the plot of the story is the girl with the dragon tattoo is called in to do a job. You see this in the preview, so this is not a thing. She slid an envelope and she's supposed to do that, and then they say, just like in the trailer, she says that she was set up, and then what happens is,
well,
go ahead.
She was hired to do a job by a character played by Stephen Merchant.
Okay, so her dramatic need is told really through a flashback.
Yeah.
The flashback actually is what opens up the film, because they have to tell you her backstory, because it has to do with two sisters. Mm-hmm. And again, it has to do with choices that are made. Okay, so you open up and you see, and there's elements within images, which is what film is about. Film is about images more than it's about the dialogue. And so the images are put there first, and you see where the girl with the devil tattoo, where her psychosis comes from.
Right.
You see things. You see this large, oversized mansion type structure, and you see the two young ladies playing chess. You see this, so you know what world that they are in from the very beginning. But this is a flashback sequence, which is actually also a flashback sequence, which is actually a hook that hooks you in to the story. So they're playing chess, and you've seen that in the trailer, so that's no spoiler. And then they're called and summoned by their father, and as the young lady is walking by, who later becomes the girl with the dragon tattoo, there's a woman that walks by that her body is fully tattooed. And so you see some of the things that happens. Now, they get in the room with the father. Now, from what you can tell, it seems like he just finished smutting out a woman with a tattoo. It just seems like it. And so when the two girls come in, the girl with the dragon tattoo who is a thinker, the father asks him to come over, and he says something about both of you are getting so big. Come here. So automatically, when you hear that, those are some of the words that you hear in the movies about the pedophile priest, and you hear that. So, but this is the father. The mother is nowhere around. She must have passed on. And so, the one daughter, which is the blonde head, goes over, and the other daughter, who is brunette, who is the girl with the dragon tattoo later, says no, and grabs her and runs. And then from there, there's a decision. No, wait a minute. From there,
don't give.
I'm not giving away the film. There's a decision that is made, and this is what the film is about.
Yeah, that's where it takes off.
That's what. So that is the initiating event right there in a flashback. Now, remember I told you in film school they tell you never to have an initiating event happen within a flashback. And matter of fact, everything should be happening in real time right there on the screen, as real REEL is simulating REAL real time, as if it's happening. But when people are great filmmakers and great storytellers, they can break the norms and go in and tell the story from a flashback. Now, once the flashback happens and it goes in, then the opening sequence of title board comes up and it introduces you to it, and then they use animation to tell a story.
Yeah, and then you're introduced to all of the players.
Right.
And
yeah, you're introduced to all the players with the names and everything. And then it opens up with the scene that you see in the trailer,
right,
where the man is being suspended upside down. That's how it opens up. And so then that right there tells you where she's at now, that she is fully arced into who she is. So who she is already played on the screen, because they show you in the opening credits things that have happened in the past through anime, and it's well done, very well done. So the story is about decisions, about making decisions, and in the closing you've seen that too. I'm not going to give that away, but the sister accuses, you hear that in the trailer where she says, you saved all of these people, all of these women who are being abused. How come you didn't save me? And then she has to tell her, and so you have to see the movie at that point. So that's as far as we can go about that. But it's about decisions that you make that may change and detour your life for 15 to 17 years. It may take you down roads that you never expected to go, or not never expected to go, but just roads that is going to take you because you make a poor decision or poor decisions. And between the two sisters, the one made a drastic poor decision, and instead of taking responsibility, it's about the decisions that you make and then taking responsibility for the decisions that you make. That is what all three of these movies that we're going to be discussing are about. Go ahead.
What I like about her character is she has a lot of character, actually. I mean, she stands for something. She could be selfish, because you'll see in the film where she could have been selfish from her background. She could have been a lot like her sister, but she chose to take a different route. And she's a strong character. She's very intelligent. Action throughout the movie from beginning to end. Witty, very witty. Well written. Hilarious. Just a combination of everything. So her character is very likable.
Now, when we first walked into the theater, I said, how long are they going to take to kick this off? Because, like when you start over in the Marvel films, like they've started Batman so many times. Every time one Batman leaves, the stories are never completed. I remember when the one Batman left before they got, or the last one is leaving now. They had the bat layer that was like kind of underwater or something like that, and you were introduced to Robin and Batgirl, and now those stories can never be completed. So every time, so I think it's a cheat to those who are in, that's DC, excuse me, not Marvel, but those who are in the into comic books and like to tell a story or have stories told. It's like cheating them out of, seeing the stories fully developed and fully given. So that's why when we walked into this, knowing that this was a totally new scripted piece,
right,
a totally new written piece from out of the series,
right,
which was not part of the first three. I was like, how long are they going to take to pop this off? How are they gonna tell her story, have to rehatch her story all the way through like the first?
They weaved it in very well.
That's right. So it was not something where it was something where you had to wait to get it. And matter of fact, you got more of who she was than you got in the initial first American version or the European version, because the European versions, she was who she was, right? And you really didn't get that aspect of what made her who she was,
Right.
but you just knew that she was a tough kick. She was kicking ass and taking names, or taking no names and kicking ass, whichever way that you want to say it. So you knew that. But this is the storytelling is at the top of storytelling in film, from the imagery to the pacing of it, to the angles, to the dialogue that was there, to the action that told the story without dialogue. And the lead actress who played the girl with the dragon tattoo,
Yeah, Claire Foy.
her facial expressions in this, I mean, you're gonna see her in some other films that are coming up, or the one film that was out that we didn't see, wasn't really interested because they didn't have the black element of it in Nassau. For some reason they left that out again after we learned about Hidden Figures. We learned about that, and somehow they left them out the film. We don't know what happened, so we weren't going to see that because that wasn't factual. So we weren't going to see that, but she was in that one about some man that's on the moon first or whatever. And so I'm sure she did a great job in that. But this right here, her ability to show you how the woman calculates with her facial expressions, how her emotions when dealing with her sister, when seeing her sister for the first time after 17 years.
Yeah, you said that in the theater.
And then and later when they're at the end and they're standing there on the precipice.
Yeah.
And see in the filming on the precipice, it's relayed there in images, and they're there, and in the end when she asks her the question, I mean, you will know what the answer would be because, well, you will see the film. So acting superb, writing superb, cutting on the editing superb, action sequences superb. There's some things that are done. Looks like
music is nice also.
Yeah. The music is definitely builds the world.
Yeah.
After you come out of the world that they were in,
Right.
then you're introduced to her world, which again, just like where she came from, is a large building. It's a large factory, an old factory building. So her world is somewhat the same. That's what she feels comfortable in. Large, extensive areas, but they have, just like she did with her sister, she has her compact area. All of this is told in the story when you watch it. Beautifully done. Now, supporting cast. My guy, your guy.
Keith Sands.
That's right. Great actor. We've reviewed his film Sorry to Bother You that came out earlier in the summer.
Right.
Shout out to Donald Glover, because Donald Glover has introduced to the world great actors who are in Hollywood films, blockbuster films,
Right.
which is taking them to heights, and they are excelling, and they show their range in everything that they do. So shout out to him. But him as the counterintelligence agent who works in the computer department to make sure the hackers can't break in after being hired because he was a hacker. You find that out in the story. His ability to move in this world that is basically all Europeans.
Right.
For him to move around and not stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
It was kind of like Overlord.
Yeah.
How like the way they rewrote Overlord, and how
just a well-written piece.
How Adobe,
not stereotypical.
How the character, their boys could move around within a French town and be the only black man there and move around and not be seen, or is seen but knows how to maneuver. And this is how the story is with his character in A Girl in the Spider's Web.
Yep, directed by Fede Alvarez.
That's right. His acting in this is totally believable.
Yeah, it is.
He's calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah.
An agent. We almost said I could see him as a James Bond.
Yeah, we said that. We did say that.
We can see him as James
also.
Bond if they don't get Idris Elba to be James Bond. We can see him. Hey, and before you say, hey, he's not English. Hey, there's plenty of English actors that are coming over who are playing American roles, and so why not, non-English actors,
because
American actors go over there and play English roles.
Because after seeing him play an agent in this film, I can definitely see him playing James Bond. So, but when you're thinking of his character on Atlanta, and he's like really laid back in this film, he's cool, laid back also, but it's like with suave intelligence type. Intelligence meaning like a governmental, like CIA, like a James Bond, So
he knows how. He's familiar with handguns. He's familiar with all that, and he can handle himself like that.
Yeah, he was witty too. The writing for him was really excellent. Like he and the main character, they went toe for toe. Like, because both of them are like real great computer, like hacker types, and they were like toe for toe. The writing was just like good. The dialogue between them, like the interaction was just.
It was like a cat and mouse. It was like a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, it was smooth.
Like, can you catch me?
Yeah.
And it was vice versa that way.
With a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, mutual respect for each other. And once he got there and started seeing her do what she did, he could just come right in and find those pieces that would videotape. He could find that and automatically know how to play back and all that. So he was just savvy in everything that he did in the film. So it's well worth seeing, and I love the way that the studio system, since the Sony hacks, have reimagined and started to include in films that are not necessarily multicultural. And we've already talked about the definition of diverse, so we'll leave diversity out because that's not something that's positive for Black people. Go back and look at the Equalizer 2 review where we talk about what diversity is. You can find that on the podcast on SoundCloud under the Film Review Movies, Music, Culture. You can search that in SoundCloud and listen to the various podcasts because it turned into audio. But the multiculturalism, it's not much multiculturalism in the piece, but him being there brings about a reverse diversity where his eye, where he's keeping watch over Europeans. So it's a reverse there. It's very, very, very shrewdly done in it when you know what diversity means. So he's the reverse. And
he's not like just in the film. He's actually like his character plays a major role. Yeah, major role in the film.
Okay. So we told you about that. We can't give you much of the plot away, but so we told you that. So let's go over. So what would you review the film? We talked about the acting, the writing, the shot angles, the storytelling. What would you rate the film?
I would definitely give it like a 8.
An 8.
Yeah, it was really good.
Why 8?
I don't know. Just everything. Like the acting was good, the music, and then of course like it was really picturesque like especially like on the mountains with the trees during the winter scenes. It was really picturesque, really beautiful where they shot it. The action and just the acting, really like that script was crazy. Like the interaction between Lakeith Stanfield and Clara Foy, it was good. I'm giving it an 8. I mean, it could actually like be a 10 because I would actually sit in the theater and watch the film again.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I would give it a 10.
But I mean, like, that's why I asked you why at 8.
It was hard.
So it's something that's missing, and so we need to, tell the people what it is or what you believe for it to be, because something is missing for you to pull out an 8.
Nothing was missing, so maybe I should give it a 10. I think I would have given it a 10 if it was like still like fresh on my mind. So since it's been like, a couple of days since I seen it, it's down to 8.
Okay.
But definitely like a 10. Like, it's definitely worth like Oscar worthy or NAACP worthy, BET Awards worthy. Like, the film is a good film, so it's definitely worth seeing it, and I would see it again, because there are some films I wouldn't watch again, but this film I would definitely watch again. Like The Last Avengers with the people disappearing. Like, I don't even want to see that again. Like, I wouldn't watch that again. I didn't like to see the Black Panther disappearing and Iron Man and all that. Like, I wouldn't want to watch that film again. But this film, I would definitely pay to watch this film again. So I would give it a 10.
I think I have to give it a 9. Okay. I'm going to tell you why. I could break it down. Differently, but seeing the original girl with the dragon tattoo, the original for America, because again that was the European version, to me wasn't as good as the American version. Okay, the actor in this who played Lee, the girl with the dragon tattoo, the very first one had to do with a lot. It was sensual in its depictions of what was happening, and her sexuality was used a lot to overcome. And when I first saw the young lady that they were going to have play the role, I said, well, she's not going to be able to bring about and depict the sensuality of the girl with the dragon tattoo, because if I believe correctly, the dragon tattoo was longer and went down the girl's back to her spine. And so if I remember the first one correctly, where this one was like more on the side shoulder, down to like maybe just above the middle of her back and not the lower back. So they did. So in the opening sequence, how they took care of that was to show you a girl with a full body tattoo, it looked like maybe she was a hooker or something coming from out the father's in the flashback. And so that's how they conquered that situation. So they kind of made her more, instead of using sensuality or sexuality to get through, they had her use her mind more. So that right there took away from the element of what the girl with the dragon tattoo was. So that's one reason why I give it a 9. Other than that, the acting,
this is a different writer though, remember?
No, yes, but then the actor that they chose to tell the story, I knew that she wouldn't be either built for it or necessarily willing to do that within the years we are now in, which is the Me Too movement. I knew that she wouldn't be readily willing or wanting to do that, because her purpose is to be seen as a legitimate actress, and sometimes people feel that they are not legitimate if they have to take their clothes off. But then we've seen films where it adds to the story, and it's done because it tells the story, because it's real life.
Like Foxy Brown,
right.
Pam Grier, right.
Pam Grier, for example,
right.
or Call Me or Coffee,
right,
or any of those films like that. That added into it, but it was a different time period then, and we're going through what you could call the pendulum swinging back, and it's starting to turn into more of a prudish type situation that's going on here, until everything levels off and gets back to not normal. I won't say normal, but back to a more even keel of understanding of what's going on with one another as men and women. So I'll say. So I knew that. So that within the Me Too and Enough atmosphere that we're in right now, we knew that wasn't going to take place, and that was not necessarily going to happen. So that's why I had to give it a 9, because it took away from what it originally was. So that's a give it a 9. Other than that, go see the film. You will be entertained. Yep. You will be entertained. Now, the next film that we are reviewing is a documentary that's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. It's about the director Orson Welles and his last film that he was working on in 1971. It began in 1971, and he kept filming until 1978, until something happens with the Iranian government, whose officials, the son of the Shah, financed the film. But then all of a sudden, once the Shah changed hands and it became Ayatollah Khomeini, the film was confiscated, and so he spent the rest of his life not only still acting in films and making films, like F is for Fake. He finished that film in between his life, but in between time he was fighting from 1978 to 1985 to get his film returned to him so he could finish the film. And the film was called On the Other Side of the Wind, and no one seemed to know what that meant. But the name of the documentary is They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, right? And so the documentary is so gripping because it goes through and it tells you that Orson Welles suffered. Yeah. He suffered, because he came during the time when they had the Red Scare and McCarthyism. They really didn't address McCarthyism, but he was on that list at one time, which was part of the problem, and the studios in America kind of shunned him. They didn't like his style of filming, even though he was cutting edge, and today it is considered great filmmaking and on the cutting edge of what is still happening today. Like his deep focus, like when you watch Citizen Kane, he suffered one for the Red Scare, and then the studios, while he was overseas doing other films for them for the war effort, they screened his film and started cutting on films that he had without his permission, saying that this is not that, and then they fired him as the director, which cast him away from the Hollywood system, right? And two, the reason why he suffered so much is because Citizen Kane was considered his best film ever. Now, he did this in his prime, and they said that everything that he came with after that dulled in comparison, and he suffered because he was always trying to get back to that standard where people would, respect him for that. The documentary was gripping
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead.
It was gripping. And what was a nice surprise was, like, after the documentary went off, then the second film that popped up was
on the other side of the wind.
So I'm like anxious to see it, because seeing the process that Orson Welles went through, the trials and tribulations, just trying to finish this film, and knowing that he passed away before it was complete, right? And then so I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, well then, what is this movie going to be like? And, were they able to like edit it and get it done the way he would have wanted it to be done? Because this was his like baby, his pet project, right?
So this was like the documentary was about decisions,
right,
and consequences of decisions, and being culpable for your decisions. The decision to get the film funded, because Hollywood studios were not funding him at this time because they didn't understand his vision, right? So he had to go find outside funding from people from other nations.
And after seeing the film, we understood why Hollywood didn't want to fund the film, because it was like putting a mirror up to the face of Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It really was. And they will love me when I'm dead is a great documentary to watch. Anyone who is a creator, who creates film, like Orson Welles' Deep Focus. I didn't know what it was called, but I do deep focus in my filmmaking. I don't use shallow depth unless it's a specialized scene. See, shallow depth is supposed to be used for specialized scenes where you're showing the focus on one person or other. It's not necessarily supposed to be used to block out backgrounds, but most people use it now to black out the backgrounds, because either they don't know how to set the angle correctly, or they have a corporation that's in the background that they have to block out somehow, and they can't figure out how to do the camera angle right, so they cheat and use shallow depth,
right,
which focuses in on the principles that are in the foreground and not in the background. But if you know how to use your camera work, like when I was in film school, I shot this piece where I was the protagonist, and behind me was greenery, and the film professor was like, usually people use depth of shallow depth, but the way that you shot this, the greenery doesn't interfere with you, and that's interesting. So that's called deep focus, where you can see long distance, and the focus in the background is the same as the focus in the foreground, and it doesn't interfere, and it tells a better story of where the person is. And so I learned that that's what that was after we started watching Orson Welles films. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's what that's called. I'll take that as that's what that's called. But I just did it naturally because it just looked good to me. So the documentary then rolled over to the film,
right?
And we said, well, let's watch this film, because the film was completed just this year in 2018.
And the editor, Bob Murewitz, did an excellent job putting this film together.
Now, what's funny about this film is, I have to say that great minds think alike. If you watch the seasons of the Black Ice Chronicles, you find that the stories that I tell have to do with what's happening with the director in what is considered real time or behind the scenes, and then what's happening within a story that's being told, right? The other side of the wind is exactly that. It tells two stories. It tells the story of the behind the scenes of trying to get this film completed, and also the actual film itself is being played within the film to try to get funding for the film, to complete the film.
Right.
I mean, it's a very interesting piece. It's really amazing the way the story is told. It's really amazing the way the story is told, because you go through and you see it. Now, what all this again is about decisions. And this is what the other side of the wind is about. It's about decisions of friendship and falling out of friendship. And also it's about an aging director who is trying to get this film finished. And it's chaos going on at the same time.
The aging director is played by John Huston, Ojar Kadar, and Peter Bogdanovich are also starring in the film.
Peter Bogdanovich plays the young upcoming director, and I mean it's just an incredible piece where, you know, you see the inner workings of any studio system or any Hollywood system. You see the inner workings, and you see the jealousies or the camaraderie, the jealousies that come from youth coming next, or youth being jealous of the person who is already established. So you see all this playing out, and you also see how the film is made, how back then they were trying to finance. But here's the interesting piece about the other side of the wind. It's the metaphor talking about making the film, and the other side when the film is completed, right? And this is what this is showing you, how scenes are finished and everything. But the most interesting thing about this is Orson Welles captured what's going on today in 2018, way back there, starting in 1971 to 78. And the film, because what they did was they took edits that he had already done, and also instructions that he wrote down about how he wanted the film edited, and he created a masterpiece that is telling the story today about how film. There's a documentary crew that's following everyone around that's involved in the film. It's like what people do with their cell phones today. He was ahead of his time.
Reality TV. Before reality TV.
That's right, reality TV. Now, also what is different about this film is it was made in the 70s, so it was coming off of the free love and free expression and body is beautiful situation. So in the piece in the film, which sets up the story on the other side of the wind, depending on which side you want to say the wind is on, it sets up the other side of the wind. The woman is in the film for at least 40 minutes of the film. The woman is totally nude in the film for 40 minutes. It's just telling the whole story, and she's naked in the film for 40 minutes, and thus it leads into introducing a teacher that the lead male in the thing had, and there's a discussion about homosexuality in it.
Yeah, he covered he all of the issues.
Everything in this film, everything, it is contemporary to today. Okay, now you've seen Macbeth and all those other films, and he seemed prudish with the sexual talk. In this film, it is not. And I don't know if it was because it was moving into the theater, the studio systems had crumbled, and now it was more independent filmmaking, easy writer and all that. So it was able to open up and be more expressive. And this is what he did with this film. It is a film that is worth seeing. It is right there. It's right here where we're at. It would have been a masterpiece back then in the 70s, right? It would have been a masterpiece back then in the 70s. He didn't get a chance to finish it. You know, he passed on in 85, and then people went on and tried to get the film back. They finally got it back, took the rough cuts that he had already done, tightened it up, used the instructions, and produced a film that is a masterpiece. It should be up for the running in the Academy Awards. And on
his
top
daughter
of that,
was one of the executive producers.
And these actors come into a new era,
right?
Younger. Many of them have passed on, but the ones that remain, who were younger then, who are now in their 70s, right? They can look back at this film, and now they're young, contemporary now in this time. It's weird. So it really, what it teaches is, it doesn't matter how long it takes to do a film, because he started in 71, and you can see some of the changes in the actors in between 71 and 78. You can see that they aged within that time, but they still kept themselves together, and they still were able to play the roles. And the way it's edited, it cuts back to when they're a little bit younger. And it's, if you're not really paying attention, or if you're not a film editor or a film person, you won't be able to tell the difference. It's well put together. So let's rate the documentary. And it's all about choices. It's all about choices that were made, how the studio system chose to ignore him, and how he chose to continue to finish, go get funding from overseas, and how that may affect you in the end, trying to do something outside of a system. So as far as they'll love me when I'm dead, what do you think?
I would give it a 7.
Okay. 7. Okay.
I mean, it was good. It was interesting and entertaining. I would like to have seen one of the leads be Black American, African American.
Yeah, that's true.
There wasn't any. I think I saw maybe 1 or 2.
There was one in there that had a prominent scene.
Okay.
He did have a prominent scene where he had roles, so he put him in there.
Yeah.
But
and then the lead, she actually, in the beginning we thought she was black, but they put they put blackface. It was blackface because she was from overseas, but French or whatever, Croatian. But she was playing a Native American, so she had like a. So they put a brown.
They put a brown tint on her face, and
caramel.
Yeah, and
we thought she was black.
During those times, they wouldn't use the actual actress. Even Mickey Rooney played an Asian, a Japanese in a film, and they didn't do it. And
I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted Eartha Kitt to play the part, actually, but
yeah, that's true, because
he dated her.
Yeah,
and then seeing that the lead was made up to look like a black woman.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, in that aspect, there was some aspect of, but the confusion that was told and talked about in the documentary, and how the actors didn't know what's going on because there was no script. It was just he was writing as he went along and giving them ideas, and they were doing what they do as actors and bringing this out. Nobody knew where it was going to go. There were some mannequins involved. There were some midgets involved. They called them midgets. Now they're little people, but they called them midgets then. They were involved in it, and they didn't know where this was going. So just strictly for them covering it and then watching the film, I have to give it a 10. I have to look at the time period that was happening then, as far as the blackface was concerned, and we crunched that, but we were coming into the 70s where we had to stump that out.
Right.
And so
they didn't do the literal blackface.
They didn't do that. They just had her tanned a little. Yeah, not like they're doing today, where they put on the red lips.
She was more like the blackface type, like tanned, kind of like what Kim Kardashian is promoting this line of tan cream that she's promoting, and it makes her look like a black woman. So that's
it's like that. Things come back around. Different people do the same thing over again.
Yeah.
Now, as far as
it wasn't the Megyn Kelly type of.
No. As far as the other side of the wind, what would you rate that film?
Oh, the film.
The film itself.
You know what? I mean, equally. Yeah. Okay. So I would give the documentary, a 7, because I didn't know where they were going, but it was good and it was interesting and it kept me like really interested. So when the film came up next, I was like really excited. So I would give the film a 8, because it was nice. Because in the documentary, it was just like different things, like when you mentioned like the midgets and stuff. And I was wondering, this not to give it away, but there's one scene where they have like these candles that look like candles that go on top of the cake, and I'm like, what are they doing with the candles, right? And then but when you see the actual film, it makes sense, because in a documentary, remember, you're just seeing bits and pieces, not the complete film, because the studio wouldn't back them. But after seeing the complete project, everything came together. So I would definitely give it an 8.
I have to give it a 10. Just strictly for the creativity. One, being able to shoot pieces and bits and pieces and know how they're going to fit together. Having actors that weren't in the room together, and being able to piece it together, make the soundscape sound as if they were in there. Use the point of focus of the eye, or the point of view of the eye to be right there, so when it cut to the opposite shot, it would look like they were there. And then to cut to another scene where other people are observing them. I mean, it's just the way it's told. The freedom of sexuality in the picture. Just love that. This uptightness is just really weird today. Even though it's so much more rawer today, but it's so much more uptight today. It's really weird. The storytelling, the point of view, the use of actors for 7 years straight to get the story up to the point where he had it, and basically he had it finished.
Yeah.
He had it finished. He just needed to edit it.
Right.
And so to do that and to have it be relevant to what's happening today, that it's I mean, Citizen Kane, if you watch Citizen Kane is Gary Hart. Right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. Gary Hart in contemporary, in the 80s, but come to find out, they say Gary Hart didn't even do it. Yeah. Right? But Citizen Kane,
and that film should be in the theater soon, right?
Right. That should be in the theater soon. We'll probably be reviewing that. But that is, that's contemporary to this time, to any time, to Bill Clinton's time. Same thing. But this film right here being so contemporary, where the documentary camera people are like the people with their cell phones today, capturing behind the scenes and everything that's happening in the world. So for that, I have to give it a 10. You have to see these films that we review for you. These two are on Netflix, and The Other Side of the Wind.
The Gary Hart movie is called Front Runner.
Right. We'll be reviewing that. They Will Love Me When I'm Dead. Both of those are on Netflix. And then The Girl in the Spider's Web is in the theater
or maybe on Fire Stick. So, but you definitely have to check it out.
You will be
all three.
Entertained. You will be entertained.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. This has been another great installment of the Film Review. Movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to our minds.
Right.
We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracy.
And we are the husband and wife team that review culture in movies, music, politics, and society. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.